Suzanne's Paparazzi Jewelry, 24/7 shopping available. 160920 is the code. Show her some love, like she showed us. K&A Custom Crafts on Facebook.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Whatever on Wednesday. It's segment 2. I have my friend here, Bodine Sanders. Hi Bodine, thanks for joining us again. We didn't have enough time last time to cover everything we wanted to. You know, our conversations are usually lengthy and full of content. So you're back again. You're back to the table, and you're back at the mic. And we have some exciting news. I don't know if we want to hold it or release it. We're actually going to have the Bo and Joe show. We haven't worked out the exact entire title, but that's going to be coming in the first week of July. So that's something to look forward to. People might get sick of us, but we certainly won't get sick of each other, and we always have a lot to talk about. So welcome to the show, Bodine.
Thanks, Joanne. I don't think anyone's going to get sick of you. They might get sick of me, but they will never get sick of you. But I appreciate being here. Absolutely.
Well, thank you. That's very sweet, and I appreciate it. I take all the compliments I can get. I certainly don't turn any down. And I love that opening ad. I just want to shout that out there. I think Jason has a great voice, and I love when he says, "Show him some love," like she showed us. So I want to comment on that publicly because I love that segment. But let's talk about, I don't know. Well, we promised the fans we're going to talk about, and the listeners, we were going to talk about Charles Barkley. So let's start there. Let's dish on your experience and how you met Charles and that part of your story.
Well, you know, I think it's a great story. So if we're going to take the time to talk about diversity and inclusion and my experience and how I was able to go from an all-Black environment to a new environment that I was not used to, a mainstream traditional white environment, there was a lot of growth that I needed to go through. So after the 1985 NCAA championship, where we beat Georgetown, the great Georgetown with Patrick Ewing and his crew, summer comes around, and the Villanova basketball players, who were the 3 seniors, who was, very instrumental in the entire season and winning the championship, Easy Ed Pinckney, Dwayne D-Train McClain, and Gary McClain Gizmo. They were all of the basketball players, but a lot of the athletes, we're talking in the 80s, stayed during summer school because we got a summer camp job. You could be a coach, a counselor. It was easy money, right? The kids, being around the kids and teaching them the fundamentals of the sport was just a great atmosphere. One night, Ed Pinckney got drafted to the Phoenix Suns. And so he was ready to practice in the gym. No one was around. So I happened to be around. And so I worked him out, and he goes, I need more work. I need to get more of a workout in. I want to play a game, but there was nobody around. All of a sudden, this kid walks into the gym, and I had seen this kid around campus the entire year, and I didn't really know who he was. I just assumed he was the kid of one of the athletic administrators, right? He was always in the gym. Every now and then I see him up on campus, but the kid was always around, especially the basketball team. So I just assumed he was someone's kid. So I get introduced to him officially, and Ed introduced me to him, and Ed tells the kid his name was Shorty G, right? That was the kid's nickname, Shorty G. He was probably, 8th, 9th grade, And so Ed says, hey, I want to play some ball. Let's run to Ardmore. And I'm like, I don't know if we want to go to Ardmore, but all right, let's just go. And Shorty G says, no, let's go to St. Joe's University, which is not far from Villanova. So, of course, Ed was drafted. He's going to be an NBA player. He has a rental car. It's not a big deal. We're going to get in the car. We're going to drive to St. Joe's. Our only concern was St. Joe's was a little stricter with their on-campus facilities. You could not get in their gym and just walk in their gym and play ball. You had to have a school ID or some type of ID admitting you in the gym. The reason why is because the Philadelphia 76ers practice there every now and then. So Shorty G said, I can get us in. And I'm looking at this itty bitty tiny white kid who everybody loves. He's a great kid. Everybody loves him. Like, what kind of power does he have that he's going to get us in the gym? So, hey, I'm along for the ride. We get in the car. We head to St. Joe's. It can't be more than a 10-minute drive. We get to St. Joe's. Shorty G walks in front of us, way ahead of us. He gets to the security guard. He says whatever, and the security guard lets us in. And I'm like, wow. This kid must know everybody. He has to be like the athletic director's grandson or something like that, right? Well, we walk into the gym. I'm still dumbfounded that this kid can get us in the gym. And who's in the gym playing and practicing? Charles Barkley and Sedale Threatt. Wow. Sedale Threatt was a point guard, and we all know who Charles Barkley is. And so and Charles knows the little kid. And I'm like, hold on. This kid seriously is like the mayor of the main line, right? So we get introduced, and obviously Ed and Charles know each other because the previous year when I was home, right, in Jacksonville, the Auburn played Villanova in a Christmas tournament put on by the Jacksonville University Dolphins. That was the Christmas tournament. And there was a bunch of schools obviously in that tournament. And so they played each other. And that's when I first discovered Charles Barkley. This kid was a big, huge kid dunking and destroying Villanova. I didn't know who Villanova was at the time, but I easily knew who Auburn was. The Auburn Tigers were, right? That's a Southern SEC school. So it immediately comes to mind that, wow, these guys played each other in that Christmas tournament, and Charles crushed Villanova. And so I immediately found out that Charles had a personality. He immediately started harassing and riffing Easy Ed. I mean, immediately. And so, I'm a freshman, just finished my freshman year. And I'm sitting there with 3 NBA players who are very good at what they do. And I didn't play high school basketball, but I'm a football player, so I got an angle of arrogance about me. So I'm not feeling intimidated. So Sedale Threatt says, all right, let's play 2-on-2. Villanova versus St. Joe's. Versus the Sixers. And so Sedale Threatt's a point guard, but he's a little bit taller than me. And I'm 6'2" at that time, 6'2.5". And Sedale Threatt and I make eye contact, and he goes, don't worry, I'm not here to show you up. I said, no. I said, no. Show me what you got. I'm here to learn. I'm just a football player. And so we had our little battle, but Charles and Ed had their battle, and they went at it. And screaming, yelling, scratching, slapping, knocking each other down. They went at it. Now, they won the game, obviously. But Ed won in terms of proving he could hang with Charles, because Charles, as a rookie, established himself as an up and coming, all pro. And so he figured, I'm thinking to myself, Ed, you did okay. You did okay. So on the way back home, I'm sitting in the back seat, Shorty G's in the passenger, Ed's driving. And Ed asked Shorty G, who was he rooting for? And Shorty G said, I was rooting for all you guys. And he's like, no, seriously, who are you rooting for? He goes, seriously. And we called him Easy. He said, Easy, I was rooting for all you guys. I love all you guys. Now, the moral of the story is that was the first time I heard a white kid tell a black person he loved them. So that was part of my evolution in terms of diversity and inclusion. That's why I wrote the book, because there are so many stories like that. And so, again, for me, coming from my background, having no white friends, it was definitely different. But it was a good different. It wasn't a bad different. It was a good different. And little things like that helped me evolve in my new environment. So along with a great story about Charles, the story about Shorty G, to me, is very important. That's why I put it in the book.
Yeah, I love that. So I want to say hi to Randy, who's out there, and he wanted to shout out and say that he likes Charles Barkley. He was one of his favorite basketball players, and Donna's on the show as well. Hey, Donna, thanks for joining us. So now, did you ever have the opportunity to see Charles Barkley again, or that was your one claim to fame? Do you ever run into any of those players, or have the opportunity to mingle like Dr. J or Charles Barkley, or even the football players? Howie Long? Do you ever? With them?
Oh no, I'll stick with Charles since we started with Charles. Probably 3 or 4 months later, I moved off campus with a group of guys, our crew. We call ourselves the crew. Guys from Norristown, Nate Book. You heard me mention Nate Booknight, my teammate, Buzz Bass from Norristown.
Love that name, Buzz Bass.
Big Lou, we call him the green-eyed monster. This guy was huge. He was from Norristown. One of the first light-skinned brothers I met with green eyes. He would hang out with us. He didn't live with us, but he'd come visit us. So our crew moved into a house off of campus. So I was walking from our off-campus housing to campus, which is maybe a mile and a half up the street. And all of a sudden, I hear a horn blow, and I turn, and it's this beautiful 944 red Porsche. And the window rolls down. I bend over to look and see who's in the driver's seat, and it was Charles Barkley. And apparently he remembered me. He goes, "You need a lift? I'm going by Villanova." And I'm like, "Yeah." So he gave me a ride, dropped me off right there in the center of campus, just off of Lancaster Avenue. And the people who saw me get out of the car were like, "You know Charles Barkley? You know Charles Barkley? You know Charles Barkley?" So Charles, basically by hanging in the area of the main line, I would like to say he fell in love with Villanova over time. His daughter ended up attending Villanova, by the way. So he had a secret love for Villanova, because he ended up hanging with us, all the time, be it the summertime. He became a really good friend of our crew of athletes at Villanova. So we hung out with him a lot. He was an awesome guy. I write a story in my book about, if you remember, Charles had a somewhat of a good and bad reputation of throwing people through windows at sports bars, and
he did.
Right.
Even now, his reputation can be controversial at times.
Well, I could relate to Charles because, again, my family is from Alabama, so is he from Alabama. So there's a certain Southern mentality that we have. And so I kind of understood where he would come from when he would talk to the media and say, hey, listen, I'm not that guy you walk up to and say whatever, right? So, but he got a lot of it was, and I write in the book, a lot of it was just some folks who had too many alcoholic beverages felt they could just walk up to athletes or people, but mostly our crew, and just say what they wanted, whatever was on their mind. And a lot of it, they put themselves in bad situations. So I completely understood Charles. As I said in the book, 70% of the issues that happen at a bar was not Charles's fault. It was someone else's trying to gain a reputation for themselves by creating and stirring up an issue because they knew he would not respond in the way that the media wanted him to respond, or say his coaches wanted him to respond. Athletes in college can't really respond a certain way because we still got to report to our coaches and get in trouble. A pro athlete, what's a pro coach going to do? Say, Charles, stop it. Don't go to the bar. You can't. You know what I mean? So, but we had a lot of good times hanging with Charles.
So Adam joined the show. Hi, Adam. Thanks for joining. But I want to go back to that point and really think about that. And I know that this doesn't necessarily pertain to that story, but I think it certainly is interrelated. I mean, the same holds true today for celebrities and athletes, and it's even more prone to be controversial and sensational because everybody is now, the everyday citizen is part of the paparazzi. We all have cell phones. We all, we can film anybody given at the right moment. So I think to myself, even now, had there been cell phone cameras when I was on the bar scene, I may not be here today. Not certainly that, I did anything outlandish, but any one small component of somebody's bad night can really derail their whole life. And I think certainly things you can't pull even when you're drunk, I don't believe that you can't pull anything out of somebody that they don't hold in their character. But so I think that for the most part I would have been safe. But I think, certainly I did some reckless things that I wouldn't want on camera. And I think that when you're baiting celebrities, when you're baiting the sports athletes into, because you want to expose them, you want to exploit their vulnerabilities, and unfortunately, that's just a pervasive part of our society. In some ways, it's a double-edged or whatever, a two-sided coin. There's certainly great aspects of having cell phones everywhere, but then there's also some unfortunate incidents as well. And there's also editing. You can slice and I can slice together a video in a few minutes and make something that's untrue, spin a story that's not necessarily true out of somebody's words. So that's really unfortunate.
Oh, thank goodness there were no cell phones back when I was in school. Are you kidding me? Oh my goodness. No,
we'd be talking about it. We'd be talking about a different book.
We would be, absolutely. No question about it. No doubt about it.
I want to circle back because this is it's a subject near and dear to my heart. And I know it's part of the book. You spoke about your summer camp experiences. And I want to preface it, when we're talking about diversity, it doesn't necessarily have to be, it doesn't necessarily have to pertain to race. And I think that the viewers know that my oldest son has Asperger's. And for many, many years, I didn't speak about it because it wasn't my story to tell. Now he's 17. I have his permission to speak about it. I always felt that, for me to label him or put his story out there, but one of the very few places that he felt inclusion was at a summer camp. and really he was like the mayor of that summer camp. He was a different person. So he loved, that was his favorite time of the year. So and there was some schoolwork involved. I mean, he would cry his eyes out when he had to leave that camp at the end of the year. And I think that, the kids there, it was Camp Easter Seals, and most of the children had some type of difference. Some were neuroatypical, some had Down syndrome, some were in wheelchairs, there were physical disabilities, developmental disabilities. And what happened was that, I have 2 neurotypical sons, and my sisters live in this neighborhood, and we all sent our neurotypical children there. And I think for the first time, they began to develop a compassion for people and who were different than them. And I think that that's the beauty of summer camp. And I think that your summer camp experiences, I'd like you to speak about that, because I think that that was one of the most significant and poignant pieces of the book for me, because it related to me, and it really spoke to me in a way that I can relate to. And we speak about how the book related to me, although I'm not overtly, I hate to say this on Coast to Coast, but I'm not overtly sports oriented, although I'm learning a lot more about wrestling, Adam and Randy, than I like to admit, but I'm coming around. But you know what I'm saying. I'm not as devoted and passionate about sports as my Coast to Coast colleagues, but I'm getting there. So if you can speak about that, I think that would be very significant for the listeners. Viewers.
Well, let's start with my very first summer camp, because I accepted my role in high school to switch positions. I was elected and honored to represent my high school at the fellowship of Christian Athlete for my team, right? So I was the representative. And part of the award was I got an opportunity to travel to North Carolina in the Black Hill Mountains or Black Mountains for a summer camp. And so the FCA summer camp, that was my first time away from home, literally out of the state of Florida, without family and friends. I was on a bus headed to North Carolina with kids that I didn't know. And so I get to the camp, and it's a diverse camp, but not a heavily diverse camp, right? It's probably, 30, 25% kids of color. And so I get to my, the place I'm, what do you call it at summer camp where you sleep, the cabin. Get to the cabin. And so all the kids in the cabin are white except me. So that was my first experience at a summer camp away from home and being around kids in that space and that didn't look like me. But it was a great camp. It was a great camp. My problem was, Joanne, that I thought that summer camp was out of the TV show Fantasy Island. Right?
I like that show.
Because
I hate to admit it, but I did.
Because that atmosphere, that culture, that much fun, getting to know all the kids, learning their names, discovering where they were from. I mean, that was just a great experience, but that wasn't the experience I was going to go back home to. So I purposely didn't engage as much as I didn't give 100% or 110%. So when the camp counselor says, hey, exchange addresses, write each other, become pen pals, I didn't do it because I didn't think it was going to happen or maintain itself. Because again, I was like, hey, this place is great, but this is an island. I don't live anywhere near a place that's like this. But it stuck with me because by the time I got to Villanova, and then the summer comes around, and the school is now national basketball champs. Coach Mass is getting kids from all over the country to participate in their day camps and overnight camps, right? The campus is full of kids for soccer, football, basketball, every camp you can think of, because the school just won a championship. So by the time that happens, I remember what it was like for me as a high school kid. And then I could see these kids who absolutely loved each other. I mean, these kids didn't have a care in the world. I would be out front when parents would drop the kids off, and you could hear some parents go, yell out, "Go make friends," right? Go make friends. They didn't say go make friends with kids that look like you. They said go make friends. So all of a sudden you see these little black kids and little white kids, boys and girls, absolutely enjoying each other's company, enjoying the fun they're having, looking up at 6'10", 6'5", 7 feet tall athletes, and just sucking it in, and not a care in the world in their mind that counselor is black or white. And I'm sitting there and I'm learning, right? And I'm going, wow, this is not where I'm from. Like, I didn't grow up seeing this. So it started to have a positive effect on me. And so those who read my book will learn earlier that I had an opportunity to meet Julius Erving. People call him Dr. J. I call him Mr. Irving. And so he had dropped his kids off to camp one morning, and I saw not just kids, I saw grown men stand in like he was the Beatles to get his autograph, right? And so seeing all of that with an NBA player who was at that point still a legend, he was on the verge of retiring, right? Seeing how sports could bring people together was absolutely a powerful influence, right? And so there are lots of stories like that I write in the book. But summer camp, when I was in high school, and then that first summer camp absolutely had a positive effect on me.
I think sports in general, it just is so, the whole genre is so powerful. I mean, even in certain respects, and I really see it from the gentlemen on this network and my colleagues and friends, and I see it in the populace, even just the allegiance people have to sports teams. I hear people speak about, we won last night, as if they're actually part of the team. And I think that really, you're right. It really has a way to connect and divide people as well. Here in the Northeast,
Sure.
you want to talk about the Yankees and the Red Sox. There could be some drag down fights around at this neighborhood. So that's really even the Yankees and the Mets could start a brawl in the streets on occasion. But it also speaks to the power of childhood and the innocence, and I think that really it speaks to. Children really have no preconceived notions. They really are, they're really born to love everybody. It's really learned behavior when they don't. And I think that that's really a powerful thing. I think that by the time, and I don't know when obviously I don't know when that occurs throughout the course of your life. Most of our ingrained beliefs are developed between the ages of 0 and 7. And there have been many studies in that respect. And of course, I'm a mindset geek, so I know a lot about that. But I think that really speaks to right, the power of, and I think the world is changing in many respects. So there's hope that these young children are going to really change the world. And I think that's very powerful. So that's what I love about summer camp and school as well. I think that there's great possibilities there. I think for me, the problem with sports in schools is that there's great opportunity to develop friendships, but when you're looking at a big school, we have some big schools in this neighborhood and in this area that summer could be considered cities. So there could be 5,000 kids and 60 of them get to play on the team. So, and that's the 60 best whose parents typically have money and have paid for them to be coached from the age of 5 on. I mean, there's a few with natural talent who squeeze through, but that's the one thing I don't care about sports, that it's not inclusive enough in the school setting. I think that it's really dictated by who you know, what training you've received, and how much money your parents have in some respects.
Well, help me out here. Are you talking about on the amateur level, meaning Pee Wee, Pop Warner, middle school, high school? Which level are you talking about?
Well, I'm talking about all that. So for instance, I can speak about a couple of different things. Here and directly in my neighborhood, soccer and baseball are huge. So, even myself, I brought my son to baseball lessons. So the parents, they start them out young. And here you're playing soccer at 3 years old. Baseball, you're playing at 5. But the kids who make it on the high school team are the parents who have the money to bring them to those camps and schools. And there's a socioeconomic divide.
Yes.
In my city is I believe it's been classified as the smallest city in America, and it has 3 housing projects. So there's not a ton of diversity, but there's a great socioeconomic divide. So I don't see any of the kids from those housing developments on the high school team. And I think that speaks a lot, could speak to parenting. I don't know, but I believe it speaks to the advantages that those children had in regard to the coaching, the paid coaching that they've received throughout their lifetime. And I could be wrong, but that's my perception and my opinion. So if anybody from the neighborhood's watching, I don't want to get in trouble, but that's my perception of that.
Well,
and I think that's very true at the high school level, and not in every respect. We have some great basketball players, and I don't necessarily know what kind of coaching they got on the side. And you would know more about that than I would.
Yeah, I think it's complicated based on the sport, based on the home culture, meaning the father or mother, what sport they like. Obviously, economics has a lot to do with it. That's why I say it's complicated. So there's a lot of different things. Also, what does the kid like, right? What does the kid enjoy? Like me, I grew up loving football, not basketball, but I also ran track in junior high and then a little bit in senior high school. So again, it's complicated once you talk about the socioeconomic and the social aspect and cultural aspect, not the X's and O's of the sport. So I agree. So there's a lot I'm sure there are tons of studies and more than a few books that have been written about, the socioeconomic aspect of sports. And just this week, right, the Supreme Court made a ruling regarding athletes and their ability to receive some additional, revenue, help, cash, whatever you want to call it, specifically regarding education, not just throw them money and let them have at it and go buy a car kind of thing. And the compliance folks at each college will have to monitor that and educate the kids on what they have based on this ruling, what they will be presented with, what opportunities they'll have for computers, and instead of pulling money out of their pocket to get extra books and from the bookstore and extra things related to education. So it's a business, and it was bound to happen, right? If the NCAA is, and schools are making trillions of dollars, right? It was just a matter of time. And it really started in the 80s when conferences started to build because cable was introduced to our, right?
Yes, right.
So cable started in 1970, the late 1970s. It became an opportunity to be in everyone's home, early 80s. So if you think about cable and you think about content, you got to fill that content. So you sign a TV contract with a network, a conference.
Right.
You pay that conference revenue. So now amateur sports is now making money like the pros were. So it was bound to happen.
Yeah, you have these college students who are great athletes, and and often cases they don't come from wealthy families sometimes, and they're giving them this money and they want to help out their families, and for the first time in their lives, we can even speak about that in regard to celebrities. You have these young kids who are I don't know, Justin Bieber or Drew Barrymore or Taylor Swift. I can't imagine having millions of dollars as a teenager at 18, and then at 18 you have the latitude to do what you want, and that's really why they derail so often. Even some athletes, of course, they get into drugs and alcohol, or they think they become entitled and may have violent behavior, and because who can manage that? Who can manage drinking and alcohol and money and anything you want at age 18? And I think that is a disservice to them. You're paying children, really. They're adults, but I don't know many 18, 19-year-old men who are adults and fully developmental. And I've dated enough to be able to say that with the divinity. I don't even need a research study on that.
Hey.
And I don't mean I've dated them now. I'm going back in time. I'm not dating any 18 or 19-year-olds today, but you know what I'm saying.
Absolutely.
I agree with you in entirety.
Yeah.
It is a business, and that is the unfortunate piece. You have these college athletes who sometimes, and some coaches are great. I'm not going to take away from them. Some coaches are great, but when you're at the collegiate level and you're speaking about individuals who you believe are going to go on to professional sports, they're being paid. Oftentimes, they don't even have to participate in academics. You're really being paid to go to that school, and you're given a free ride in many respects. And I think that's really a disservice to them, particularly because professional athletes, you're not going to play basketball until you're 70. And then what happens when you're 40 and you don't have skills to manage your money? And that's often what happens. Then you read about the professional athlete who's working at Walmart now, who was a millionaire, but he can't sustain his family now, or even himself.
Well, we've seen this movie before. And so the 80s and 90s is when the NCAA started to get a little more tighten the screws, right? Because we'd seen the movie before, meaning I heard stories when I was growing up about athletes attending a particular university and not taking his or her studies seriously. So once you've seen that movie before, heard it on the radio program, right, then it's up to the folks that are the leadership to make sure those mistakes don't happen. So it has gotten better over time, right? The NCAA saying, no, a 1.5 GPA isn't good enough. You got to have a 2.0 or a 2.5. Well, if you think about the difference between a state school and a private school, Villanova, their rules and policies probably is different than a state school. So again, it's complicated on every level, but when you have good people, good leadership, making the right decisions, the chances are you're going to get it right more than not.
Agreed. Chris, can you bring up Randy's statement? And I like that. He said it was all about talent in his schools. and his town wasn't particularly big on how much someone had to join the sports team. It was more about talent, and that's the way it should be. It really should be about developing natural talent, and regardless of stance in the community. But that's not always true. But I do find that natural talent does have the opportunity to shine in some instances in high school, especially in the neighborhoods where everybody's in a and I think that is particularly in inner cities, or when very few people could be considered wealthy, and that's really where a lot of times the talent shines, because everybody's in the same economic situation, and that's unfortunate in some regards, because I think that we speak about segregation, and I don't know if you and I have spoken about it before, and I believe that we have. It's almost in some ways sometimes there's a self-imposed segregation. People are comfortable living with people who look like them. That's why you have that's why some neighborhoods are certainly don't have the diversity that maybe we should have. And that's a different topic, but
no, I agree. I mean, from a person of color's perspective, sure, I could see why, coming from where I came from and coming from, again, being born in 1965, not far removed, right, from the Voting Rights Act, Civil Rights Act, you probably felt more comfortable and safe being around folks that looked like you. But there were people who looked like me who had the courage to move and buy a home because they earned the ability to buy a home in a particular section that may not have had a lot of people that look like them. So it's complicated on a lot of angles. I mean, here in the Philadelphia market, sure, you've got, pockets of Italians, pockets of Polish, pockets of Jewish and Irish, and that's just in the county of Philadelphia. But I'm sure there's a little bit of that in the suburbs as well. But so yeah, I mean, again, it's complicated, but as long as we're working our way through it, that's the good thing.
Right. And I don't necessarily think that there's anything wrong with that or bad about that. I just think it's just a thought to think about, and
no question,
and to examine and to think about really inclusion and where you might want to live, and to embrace your neighbors regardless of what they look like. I think that's really an important part of society today, and evolution and inclusion and really just how we move towards peace, a more peaceful environment in this country.
Well, I'm a perfect example. I that's what I wrote the book, right? I had to learn to embrace my new environment. I didn't leave my previous environment at Cheyney University because I was unhappy. I left it because of an opportunity to play at a higher level, right, for football. Right. So along with that came additional education and growth. So it could be done. I'm living proof. And guess what? I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one. There's a lot of folks out there, black and white, who have great stories. They need to tell those stories because those stories can help everyone move along, and methodically move the ball downfield so we can score a touchdown. How about that?
Exactly. And that bring up Randy's next comment, which really speaks to that. He tries to get along with everyone, no matter what they look like, which is why you're so endearing to me, Randy. And that's really what we hope for everybody in the country. And I think that our children are really going to be the pathway to that progress. So what else about the book? Let's talk about how, when we get close to, I'd like to talk about the Villanova locker room and the camaraderie and the things that really you learned in there. I think that you learned a lot about brotherhood in that environment, and I'll let you speak to it. I don't want to speak for you, but I like that aspect of your story as well.
Well, yeah, the one story I can think of immediately, unless there's one specific that you read in the book, but Randy said he likes to get along with everyone, right? Yeah. I gave a great story. You're talking 75 to 100 guys in a locker room. And when I tell you a football locker room is absolutely different than a basketball locker room, trust me, it is, right?
Well, I'll take
Again,
your word. I'll take your word for it.
again, football locker rooms are very loud, very aggressive in terms of jokes, zingers, and multiple personalities. I have a teammate who's a wide receiver, great personality. I've never met a black kid, meaning a teammate, who never said a word. Like, that's how quiet he was. And that I learned that even within the football culture, there's diversity. Not everybody's loud. Not everybody is that type of aggressive, in terms of their outward personality. Scott Thompson is his name. Quiet, wide receiver, not a diva, where most wide receivers are divas, right? This kid was just quiet. Didn't say, I never saw the kid say a word for the first 4 or 5 months. But in the locker room, you can imagine it. Even if I mentioned this before, let me know. If you've got music in the locker room and you've got big boom boxes, because we're thinking about the 80s, right? The big boom box. So you got music coming from this corner, different music coming from this corner, and music coming out of the ceiling. You're going to have some people that go, hold on. I don't like what I'm hearing over here, but I like what I'm hearing over here. Turn your music down. Well, guess what? There lies a problem, because football players aren't going to just say, okay, that's cool. The guy who's listening to country music is going to stand up and say, yo, you got a problem with my music? And then the guy listening to rap is going to stand up and say, you got a problem listening to my music? And then the guy who's listening to pop coming out of the ceiling is going to say, what's wrong with y'all? Y'all got a problem with my music? So what I learned in the locker room is, when you have good coaches, the coaches say, hey, listen, here's the deal. You guys police yourselves and work it out. If you can't work it out, we as coaches will work it out for you. And that's kind of the same thing a parent would say, right? Right. Work it out amongst yourselves. Yeah. If you can't, then I'll get involved. So what you learn is a little negotiating, a little diplomacy, and we come up with, okay, on Monday, we'll listen to pop. On Tuesday, we'll listen to rap. On Wednesday, we'll listen to jazz. On Thursday, we'll listen to country. And come Friday, there's no music anyway, because you're preparing for the game. And come Saturday, you play the game. So you work it out, right? And those are the types of things and memories I remember being in the locker room, where, you've got some 325-pound guys who can literally not move you, they can move a mountain. So it can be, it's a learning process, absolutely. But it's a great learning process of how people from different areas, different parts of the country, different backgrounds have to find a way to get along and work it out.
That's great. So Randy said even high school basketball and football locker rooms were different. And of course, you would know that as well. Yeah, the girls' locker rooms are pretty much the same. We're checking the mirror, we're brushing our hair, and we're putting some makeup on. So we don't have a lot of fights in there about that, unless somebody's taking too long at the sink. So I'm not an expert, certainly, in that field. So let's segue towards the end of the book. Of course, as usual, we are down to the last 12 minutes. So what do you want? What are some of the things that you'd like to convey? That certainly isn't our last conversation, but we may segue more into current events. And of course, our program isn't going to be, I don't consider myself a politician. I'm a humanitarian, not a politician. And I think that we're going to look at it from that angle. We're not going to politicize anything. Randy's asking for a part 3. Randy, we're going to have a weekly show, the Ball Window Show. You forgot. So you're going to get to see us every week. But in the meantime, tell us what are the most significant parts of the book and the messages that you'd like to convey.
Well, here's what I'll do. We're towards the end of the book, because I really want people, obviously, to pick up the book, buy the book, ebook, paperback, hardcover, and really read it, because you get a deeper understanding. Yeah, I may have some great stories, but reading the book, as you know, Joanne, is you get more out of it. But what I'd like people to get is, in the end, there was a positive outcome, not a negative outcome. Regardless of the hardships that I went through, being homeless for a little while, right? Not earning a scholarship, not feeling I completed my dream, but having folks and meeting people who gave me the opportunity to decide whether or not it was worth everything that I went through. So real quick, by the time I got to my senior year, and I didn't play a lick, right, my senior year, because I was then switched from strong safety to wide receiver, because the coach, my very first position coach, who helped me become a better player, he ended up taking a job somewhere else, like a lot of coaches do, right? He found a better opportunity. So when the new coach, defensive back coach, came in, he and I didn't see eye to eye. Maybe it was our personalities. I have no idea. But what I do know is that I didn't hold a grudge. And a lot of people were not happy with that coach. A lot of people on campus weren't happy with that coach. But in the end, when Mr. Irving called me to his house and sat me down and said, listen, what do you think you got in you? Is there more football in you? And I said, absolutely, I think there's more football in me. And he gave me a big, long mentoring conversation that he did not want me to get caught up in some of the things athletes during his time got caught up in. And he called it aged out, meaning they wanted to continue their dream. They sacrificed their personal life, meaning they turned down jobs, they turned down opportunities because they wanted to hang out at the park and continue playing hoops, thinking someone's going to discover them, right? And Mr. Irving didn't want that for me. So he made a phone call to his agent. His agent made a phone call and got me invited to a supplemental combine. And that combine was in Atlanta at Georgia Tech. And it worked out because my sister, who graduated college, right, she was now in the working world. She was living in Atlanta. So I didn't have to get a hotel room. I could stay with her. She was happy that her little brother is going to be traveling to Georgia Tech to, try out. She thought I was trying out for a team. No, I'm trying out. I'm working out to get a letter grade to see if I'm good enough to play, right? And after the workout, you run sprints and the agilities and all that stuff. My letter grade was a C+. And guess what? If you're a C+ coming from Villanova versus a C+ coming from Florida State, that's a different story. So no draft for me. No agent came knocking on my door saying, we want to sign you because we think you're going to get drafted. Boom, my career was over. And thank goodness Mr. Irving had the experience enough to get me into that combine so I could mentally go, I'm done. I've got a job offer in New York. I'm taking that job versus turning it down, right? To live this dream of trying to be a Dallas Cowboy or a Philadelphia Eagle or an Oakland Raider. So by the time I walked across the stage to get my diploma, that white paper with blue ink, right, with my cap and gown on, mentally, my career was over. It was all about taking the next step. And because I was surrounded by so many great people that I met at Villanova, it was, I came out of it with a positive outcome. And I walked across that stage happy. My mom saw me graduate. My mom got a chance to wave at Mrs. Irving because the day of graduation, we're walking to my dorm, right? And we get across the street and all of a sudden we hear horns honking. We turn around. Mrs. Irving stopped in the middle of the road. She was driving her convertible 500 SL Benz and she's waving saying, "Congratulations, Bodine. Is that your mom?" And my mom was like, "Who is that rich Black woman in that Mercedes?" And I'm like, "That's Mrs. Irving." So having said that, all of the stories I shared with my mom over the phone, she now could see they were real. They weren't just her little son talking about, maybe exaggerating about people he met, right?
Right.
So that's why my story ended with a positive outcome.
It certainly did. And, I'm excited now. We have all this star power. We could get a big name on our show, Bodine. Who should we call first? Charles? What's his number? I'll call him. I'd love to have a chat with him.
We've got a list of people we can reach out to.
All right, that's good.
We got a list of people.
We're going to list that. So you hear that, everybody? We're going to pull out all the stops and bring some folks on.
We're gonna do our best. Absolutely, we're going to do our best.
Randy's already saying he wants to read the book, and he's requesting Charles Barkley as our first guest. So we have goals. Randy. We're going to work on it.
Well, Randy, you can pick up my book by going to any of your favorite online retailers. I recommend Amazon because most people are telling me they can get it faster. But you can find any of your online retailers on my website, BodineSanders.com. Go to my website. All my profile information is there. You can get all the information you need and pick it up. Ebook, paperback, hardcover. Good deal.
So Randy said that's our summer goal to get one of the big name guests on and to read the book. So I already have Randy booked for this summer. He's never been to a drive-in. I told him he's got to get to the drive-in. Now he's got to read your book. He's gonna try to catch us with Charles Barkley. I think he's going to be our number one. So he's always our number one supporter, and we appreciate that.
Well, Joanne, someone reached out to me from Australia, who said they were going to be tuning in tonight. So you've got a following all over. I know I've got a few in Canada, and hopefully we've got some in the UK. But I know you've got one in Australia. So shout out to all your followers and fans all over the globe.
I have actually met numerous people from Australia throughout this journey of podcasting and the Coast to Coast Entertainment Network as well. And that's really the best part, I think, about, and I'll call it a job. It's a job and a hobby and a hope. And really meeting the people throughout the world. I mean, who would have ever imagined that you and I would become such close friends just from it started out with an interview. Randy, Donna, all of the people who are actually watching and tuning in, I really met through the course of this endeavor and the last year. So I think there were many negative aspects of COVID. Certainly lives were lost, families suffered heartaches, but for me, it was a rewarding and a wonderful experience in so many ways. So I'm really blessed and grateful for that. And especially since now you and I are partners, we're collaborators, we're friends, we're collaborators. We get to banter and talk every week. I mean, what could be better than that?
Oh, I'm looking forward to it. Remember, I grew up with a lot of women in my family, so I'm ready for it. No doubt about it. I'm ready for it.
And I'm going to give you top billing, the Bo and Joe show, brains before beauty. I'm going to throw it out there. I don't know. So I'll let you decide if you want your name first, brains or beauty. We both have both. So it's just intertwined and interconnected.
Oh, no. I can be the beast. You can be the beauty, because I have no problem at, falling on the sword, because again, I was a strong safety. I have no problem admitting what I am. And I like the Disney movie Beauty and the Beast. And the song. So I'm good with that.
Okay, great. And of course, as always, we're down to the last minute. I'm going to let you have the final word, but I always want to give our producer Chris a shout out. We couldn't do anything without him. We couldn't do anything, without the interaction of the viewer. So I thank everybody for the comments, particularly Randy, who really put about 50 comments in there. So he's always supports the network, and he's certainly one of our biggest assets. And Randy, I'm going to shout him out. He's going to have a debate show of his own coming up, and he's going to be moderating it. So maybe we can get to be special guests on Randy's show at some point. Debate, we debate anyways, but that's an official debating show. So I'm in for that. I'm looking forward to that. So I'm going to give you the floor to close it out, Bodine, and say goodbye and good night.
I'm all in with Randy, absolutely, and it's been a privilege and an honor to be a guest on your show. I'm looking forward to our many appearances together. We're going to do everything we can to bring important topics to the table. We won't talk about the X's and O's of sports. We're going to talk about whatever the current events are, how it relates to sports, cliches. I'll use a lot of metaphors and analogies, but the bottom line is when you have a good heart and you're coming from a good place, you can have conversations, good conversations, not uncomfortable conversations when you first meet folks. So that's what we're going to bring to the table. We're going to make it easy for folks.
Oh, I love it. I can't end on we always want to end on a high note and a positive note, and you certainly did that. So Chris, thanks everybody. We're going to close it out, and you can play us out, Chris. Thanks very much, everybody. Thanks for tuning in.